Well, let's come back to the class. Hello. Hello, Aradhya. So you were writing ticket controller.test. Let's see how that goes. We'll start with create ticket. Get all ticket is the most difficult one. Get all ticket is also not that difficult. Get one ticket. Yeah. Okay. These are easy cases. I'll leave out some gaps in ticket controller.test, and you can take those gaps as assignments of completing it. So I'll not be writing all the test cases. Again, I'll give you some assignment and try to do it on your own. For two reasons. One is, of course, the interest of time. And the second is, I want you to have some practice on this. So, describe, love, create ticket. There are two cases with create ticket. Either it should pass or it should fail. Let me show you the controller for ticket. Ticket controller.js. Create ticket. What are the places where this can fail? One is, of course, if this find one fails, we have to return. One is if this find one fails, then we have to return an error, internal server error. The second is if the find so there are three function calls. So there are three function calls. First is this function call can fail. Find one can fail. Second is this create can fail. Third is this find one can fail. There are three calls that are happening. Either one of them can fail. So we can dig deeper into creating for each one of them. I'll create for this find one, or I'll create for this create. I'll create the test case for this create. And there are only two scenarios that can happen. One is either my formation is passed and I send 201 and I send the ticket response, or my ticket creation is failing and I send an error. Those are the two cases. So I'll discuss both of those two cases. It should pass. This is something. I'll discuss that in a few minutes. And it why am I should fail. These are the two cases. Okay, one more thing that you need to test while testing create ticket is the fact that you are going to send some email here. Do you see that? Send email function. Yeah, I'll correct that spelling. Thank you, Hariharan. There is a send email function, and what you need to make sure is that the send email is actually getting called properly. So notification client is there. In this, there is a client.post, and this function should be called. Okay. So there are a couple of things that are happening here. Let's go over them one by one. Async empty to an array. Const user. You need a user spy. It is just dot spy on user comma find one. You also need a spy on create ticket. I don't know why that is not there. New user test payload. Let's create a spy on that. This is ticket controller. Okay. So user.find1 dot mock return value, and the mock return value is promise.resolve user test payload. There's also const ticket spy is just dot spy on ticket comma create. This is mock return value promise dot resolve ticket test payload or create test payload. Okay. So this is the new ticket that gets created. This should be ticket test payload actually, because there is a save button. So this should be ticket test payload. There's a ticket spy, there is a user spy. Also, there is going to be a const user spy, ticket spy, and client spy. What is this client spy? Just dot spy on something called as client and a post method on that client. What is this client? Let's look at that one. So there's a function called as const client, which comes from require utility notification client dot client. Get the client from notification client. Look at notification client once. Notification client contains a constant called as client, which is a node REST client. We get this client from the notification client. We also need to export this client, so I'll just do give me 1 second. This should be exports dot send email, and this should be exports dot client, which is client. Now I save this. I go to ticket controller, and here in this I have to get send email. So far so good. I've changed this and that. Now I have the client, and I have to say whenever I post something to this client should return me a mock response. So it should return me a callback. So I'll just come here and do mock implementation. We'll have URL, args, and callback. Callback is going to be called with test. Null. Excuse me. That's how you can implement the client and the spies on 3 things that you are building. Now, once you have created these things, the only thing that remains is the basic function. You'll have const request is equal to mock request, comma const response is equal to mock response. You'll have request dot body is equal to ticket create test payload. Request dot body dot user ID is equal to 1. Await create ticket request comma response. Expect the user spy who have been called. Expect the ticket spy who have been called. Expect the client spy who have been called. Expect response.status who have been called with 201. Expect response.send who have been called with. Expect an object containing an assignee, which is 1. Description is test. Reporter is also 1. status is open. Ticket priority, which is 4. Entitled, which is first. This is how you can test the create ticket. Create ticket should pass test case. Let me run this test. One test case. This test case should have failed. So what people describe. Okay, this CRIB. Is this the right spelling? Describe. Yeah. So I'll just run this one more time. I think somebody also told me to do it, but I forgot. All test case first. Test suite. One test suite has failed. And which test suite has failed? Let me check. Ticket controller test suite failed to run. Oh, this one. No, this one is not. This one is not. Let's do it again. One test case is still failing. Assignee is correct. Description is correct. Reporter is coming as undefined. Status is coming as this. Ticket is coming as. Why is reporter coming as undefined? Request.body. Let me check the ticket controller. Where is the reporter? Ticket object. Request.body.user_id. That's what I'm using. So ticket. Request.body.user_id. Create payload. Let me remove this line. No, I need this line. Body.user_id. Ticket dot create is returning ticket payload. Ticket response. Folder. Hmm. There should be ticket create. There should be ticket create test payload. Save and run this one more time. Yeah. So I was not returning the complete ticket on the ticket.create. So once I return the complete ticket, it is fine. So that is ticket should pass. Let's look at ticket should fail. Are you able to follow? I once had a student in my class. Whenever I asked, so all of them used to turn on their cameras. So many students will shake their head like this if they understand. Many students will shake their head like this if they don't understand. But there was a student who used to shake his head like this. And I have no clue what it meant. He'll shake his head like this. And I will be guessing what it means. So how many of you are shaking your head like this? Papa. Hello? Can you explain the test case create with the controller? This test case create with controller. Okay. So what I can, that's a good idea. What I can do is, I'll just put ticket controller by the side. And let's look at both of them together. But first I want to remove these line numbers. Appearance. So is there a way I can activity bar, menu bar, panel position, panel position. If I click on Zen mode, what happens? No, I don't want to click on. But this is a good idea. So maybe I can put it on Zen mode. I might not be able to answer some of your questions for a few minutes. I'm sorry for that, but let me put it on Zen mode. So appearance, Zen mode. So this is what the ticket create is like. First, we need a ticket object. We are passing this object in the request.body. It contains ticket create test payload. This object has title, priority, description, status, and reporter. Reporter is coming from request.user_id. So we are setting user ID as 1. And the next step is to mock this find one. We have a mock user with us. This is the mock user test payload. And what we are going to do is, anytime anyone calls find one, we are going to return that user only. So whether you are finding an engineer or whether you are finding a customer, I'm going to return the same user. Okay. There's a ticket spy. Whenever you create a ticket, I'm going to return you whatever ticket I have created. So whenever this create is called, I return a created ticket. There's a client spy, which is going to take care of the post method in the client, notification client. So this send email, when it sends an email, this client spy will look for that post method and it will say, okay, I was called. So it will return a test value and it will say that it has passed. So that's what this is happening. And then you have mock request, mock response. And to test the whole thing, there are a few things that you need to test. If it is working properly, you should have called the find one method. You should have called the ticket method. You should have called the client method. And you should have returned 201 with a object response, which is what I am looking here. So that's the whole flow of this test case. So those of you who think, there was somebody in the class who was thinking real developers never write test cases. It takes a lot of effort to write a test case and it is worthwhile. So yeah, you better start writing test cases. Now you have Is client spy in client spy why we wrote post instead of send mail? Because client spy is spying on this method. Yes. So I'm spying on this client method instead of send email method, Likit. Okay. Whenever this client dot post happens, I'm spying on that process. I'm not spying on the send email method. We are importing here notification client also. Yes, we are importing this client from notification method, which is Node REST client. Okay. I could have imported it directly from Node REST, but I imported it from specifically from notification service. I could have directly I could have imported it from the Node client, but yeah. Anyways, this is should fail. And should it fail? When either error occurs, when there's an error occurs in the create a response. So this will be a async function from an empty to this one. You will again need a const user spy. I'll copy the user spy from the above code because it's exactly the same. C control V. I also need a ticket spy, and this time ticket spy is wicked. It is going to return an error. Just dot spy on ticket create, and then you have mock implementation. There will be a callback which returns an error and null. Callback which CB new error. This is an error. Yes, Vivek. And null. You know what this means? Mock function basically mocks. So, how do I explain the mock function? Suppose you are in a company, Vivek, and there is a client presentation that you have to give. How are you going to practice that client presentation? You will ask one of your colleagues to sit in front of you and give you feedback on your presentation as if they are your client. Have you ever seen that? Or maybe you want to go for a college viva, and instead of instead of practicing with the college professor, you ask one of your classmates to basically act as the college professor. And then the college professor, whatever question the college professor might ask, the friend might ask you. Similarly, when you do mock interviews, that is also an example of this. What happens? There is a person who is not an interviewer but sits in front of you and try to act. Is it lagging for everyone? I have a good internet. Hello? Okay. Vivek. So when you go for mock interviews, there is a mock interviewer who acts as if he is an interviewer, but he is not a real interviewer. And he gives you all the values, all the questions which are similar to the interviewer. Have you ever had that experience, Vivek? Do you get what I'm trying to make here? Hello? Is it lagging? Okay. So that's what mock is about. Okay. So now imagine this function is there, which is the create ticket function. Wait. This create ticket function is going for an interview, and all these functions like user spy, ticket spy are its interviewers. Okay. So he is going to present something to user spy and ticket spy. User.find1 and ticket.create. but you don't have these function available to you right now during testing period. So what you do is you assume that these are the values these functions will return. So the actual call will not happen to the function, but these mock values will be returned whenever these functions are called. Okay, and then you can test your functioning for this user. Does that make sense? Hello, Vivek? What is the benefit of doing it like this instead of calling the real person? What is the benefit of having mocks instead of real values? Practice first is that. Second, you know what exactly you're testing. If there is an error in the user.find one, you don't care about that. I mean, so it's like if I'm coding the ticket.create functionality, I should not be worried about how user.find one is working. As long as I know what it will return me, I'm good to go. So it limits the scope of my testing to the current function instead of going into the details of other functions. That's what the importance of mock is. I hope that makes sense. It should have been called if there is an error. The user. Where is ticket controller? I hate it when my windows got closed. First of all, let me check if I'm doing in the right folder. Okay. Ticket controller. If there is an error, I just return some internal server error. And I paste it here. One more weird way in which this can be good is Vivek. Suppose this user.find one function is not yet implemented in your code. It can happen that somebody else is working on user.find one and they have not yet implemented it, but they have given you how that function will work. You can still test your code by creating these mocks. Okay? This is one more benefit of having mocks with this. Yeah. I'll save this and I'll run the test case. Test case and PM this. Yeah, it is running fine. Let's look at other test cases. There's a description. Describe. Going to describe. Update. The function empty to a function. There are two things that we need. It should pass. And
ठीक है उतरो आप जाओ धूप में
and there is also which is also there are two things that can happen. There can multiple things. You can think of more. There is always a gap in test cases. You can always think of more cases that you can test here. And I highly encourage you to write more test cases, more scenarios that you can come up with. In the interest of time, I barely have 45 minutes to cover a lot of things. So this is going to be very similar to
बेचेगा और पैसा कमाएगा तो खाइए के खत्म करबे का के बेचबे बेचबे पैसा कमावे हां तो पैसा कमाएंगे.
This is going to be very similar to the ticket create pass. So I'm going to copy this code from here. And I'm going to paste it here. Oh, sorry. not the right copy. I should copy from here.
हम उठा देंगे.
Update ticket is very similar to create ticket, so I'm going to copy the code and I'll just control this. Okay, I'll just put it back. There is user spy, which is working exactly the same. There is a client spy, which is working similarly. There is a create spy, which should actually be, instead of create, it should be find one. And that's all there is. The mock test case remains the same. The body, request body should be ticket test payload. And you'll need one more thing, which is request.params. You have to give the ticket ID. So I want to update this ticket. So I get ticket ID. User ID is okay. Instead of calling a create ticket, you are going to call update ticket. We want user spy, ticket spy, client spy, all of them to be called. Request result status should be 200 instead of 201. And the response should be description, reporter, status, priority, test. Okay, so everything looks fine. And that's how you can write the test case of should pass. I'll write the test case for should fail as well. Should fail is going to be very similar to should fail for wait a second. Let's look at the ticket controller. There's a place where okay, I'm not testing the catch block here. So what I need to do is I need to check for this if condition. Ideally, I should check for the test block also, but I'm not doing it right now. Ideally, this scan update should be inside a test block, try block, but yeah. So can update is the user ID that I'm looking for, and it should fail when the user ID that I'm sending uh, it should not update it when user ID is not reporter, assignee, or admin. So what I'm going to do is saved user I'm sending, and it's ticket.assign. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is first thing I'll write it as ticket. No, not ticket. User payload. So first thing I'll do is user test payload. In the user test payload, I'll save user ID as say 5. My user is a customer, so he's not an admin, and his user ID is 5. Okay. Whereas the reporter and reportee, so look at here. The reporter and reportees in my ticket are 1 and 1. So if I make my user test payload as 5, then what will happen is a user should not be able to update this ticket because he has no relationship to this ticket. So first thing is I make the user test payload user ID as 5. So this user is no way associated with this ticket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some spies. I'll have const user spy is just copy the user spy and the ticket spy. They are exactly the same. Copy this and I paste here. I there's a response request which is mock const request which is mock request, and const response which is mock response. Request dot params should be equal to the ID that I'm looking for should be 1, and request dot no, I don't want. That's okay. You can provide request dot body dot user ID is equal to 5. We'll do await update ticket request comma response fact user. I'll just copy this 2 lines. User spy and ticket spy should be called. That's good. We'll have expect response dot status who have been called with 401, and expect response dot send who have been called with update ticket, this one. So I'll just paste it here, save this and run the test case. Why is it failing? Await ticket dot save. Ticket save is not a function. So what? Why is this not a function? I have created it as a function. User payload. Okay, this is test payload. So I have to return ticket dot save. Just give me 1 second. Okay, update has the save, so it should be ticket create test payload. Save this and run this. Why is it failing? Ticket save is not a function. So my ticket dot find one is returning ticket test payload, and ticket test payload has a function. So if in the should pass function, it is causing a problem. So I should go to should pass and send ticket test payload of ticket payload. Let's run this one more time. Why is this failing? Here update. Object containing assignee description test. Reporter is coming as undefined in the should pass method. I'm checking the reporter as 1. So if I go to ticket controller, and I say the save. Can update saves the ticket, and then find one engineer, ticket reporter. Hmm. Okay, I'll just come here, and in this ticket, create ticket test payload. I'll just define a reporter also. Reporter as one.
आ रहे हैं जा
Save this. Run this one more time. Yeah. So you just have to define reporter here. So those are the create ticket and update ticket. Ticket and create ticket. Let's go through the code for get all ticket and get one ticket. Let me do two more. I'm running very close to the time limit, and I still have to cover the routers. I don't know why they give so many data in one class. Do you want to jump to the integration test, and let me just paste the test for these two cases, because it's going to be boring to cover each of these cases, but I will just paste the code for this. I'll read it out for you, and then if you have doubts, we can discuss them. So this is get all ticket. It should pass for an engineer. So in this engineer, you just write user type as engineer and status as open, and then you find all the arrays. And again, this is the only ticket that you should return. The return value here is just the user, and the ticket is getting returned as a single object. So this should pass for engineer. Similar thing will be returned, should pass for customer, and you will make the user type as customer, and you will have client spy, and you will have spies for ticket spy, client spy, and you'll have mock return value also. And in this case, again, you will get back the same ticket. So this is exactly the same as the above one, but instead of engineer, you have a customer. Get all the tickets for the customer, and then you have should get one ticket. This is also not complete. There are a couple of test cases that you can also write where this get one ticket is failing, or there might be a case where we are not taking care of that in the update ticket, where there might be an error in the create function or other functions. So you have to take care of those cases. So update those cases, and here also get one ticket is very similar. You just return the ticket payload, look at that payload, and return the value. Nothing special. Very simple stuff. Now let's talk about the second part of this test cases, which is the router test cases. How are you going to test the routers in your application? These are called as integration tests.
निकाल के रखो और एक छोटी बात
Let me close everything. And let's look at the router. And how do you test if a router is working? So I just click on routes and I create a new auth router. Auth.routes.test.js. We'll need something called a super test. This is a framework which is a little different from uh, Zest framework. I think it is built on top of Zest, but yeah. So first thing I'll need to install this. So I'll just do npm I super test. I'll install the super test. And the super test got installed. Now I come here and I require super test. What is the problem here? Super test is a way of testing. Super test is a way of testing integrations in the application. So what we were doing right now, I'm going to explain it with a diagram, and then it will make sense. Just give me a few minutes. So with controllers, what we were doing is we were looking at the controller as a unit entity. My unit was controller, and that too a single controller. When I was testing ticket controller, I was just checking ticket controller. When I was testing user controller, I was only testing user controller. So I have this unit. I am mocking every input that it is getting from outside. Everything is mocked. I send a request and I get a response. This is the model of unit test case. It is like keeping a small object in a laboratory and testing its features. So that was unit testing. Take a small unit of code and try to see if it is working properly for all use cases. Does that make sense, Vivek? Is the unit testing making sense? Now, although the unit test is making sense, but we also want to check if our overall application, the whole flow of application, is making sense or not. So we have our CRM app, which deals with a DB. And there is a database, MongoDB, at the back end. Requests come to our CRM app, and this CRM app sends a response. How are you going to test the complete app? One way that you might be thinking was to have like a postman-like test. Have a postman and manually test all the APIs. Have you done that on your code? You should have done. If you have coded this app, you should have done that on your app. You would have sent values on your app, and you should have sent values using Postman, and the app would have worked. Have you done that? Have you tested your app using Postman? Going back to the Aradhya's question, the process that you are following using Postman can be done using Supertest. So Postman you are doing manually, and super test can do it automatically. Manually testing, automatically testing. Does that make sense? Hello? What we are going to do now is we are going to take the whole app as a unit. Yeah, I'm going to repeat the last part in other words, Aradhya. Take the whole app as a complete unit. Complete unit. Or you can call it integrated unit. You just call it a unit. The whole app is a unit. There's a particular kind of request that you send on a particular router. And for a router, everything should work if the DB is mocked. If you can mock the DB, if I can mock the DB, then my app should work. It should not matter if I have a mock DB. The app should work in total. Does that make sense, Aradhya? So I'll tell you a story. Have you? How many of you have seen Rube Goldberg's? Have you ever seen a Rube Goldberg? Okay, I'll explain to you. In my college, I used to love creating Rube Goldbergs. I'll explain what a Rube Goldberg is. So you must have seen it somewhere, but you might not know the name. So just give me 1 second. Once I show it to you, it will become very simple. Rube Goldberg. Rube Goldberg was a man who used to create all kinds of machines. Okay. So I'll show you a Rube Goldberg machine. He runs this car and a domino falls. Now all the dominoes are falling one after the other. And this is a car going, then a circle is going. And then this, and this. And this comes here. And then these all weights come here. They go into specific holes. And there are all kinds of things that are happening. And finally, this comes here. And this comes here. And this keeps on going. And finally, park over of non-living things. that's a nice analogy. So this will keep on happening. Yes, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. But do you see this machine? Do you understand what this machine is doing? There are so many moving parts in this machine. Do you see? Now you got the idea of what a Rube Goldberg is? Hello? Rube Goldberg is this machine. These all sequence of things that are like dominoes and these balls and these clips. There are all kinds of machines that are put together to create like a synchronicity. Okay, working in sync. There is a machine here which gives an output to the next machine, then its next machine, then its next machine, and so on. And finally, some meaningful task gets done. Do you see? This is called as Rube Goldberg. Rube Goldberg. Does that make sense, Vivek? Hello?
धोया बेटा
Do you understand what Rube Goldberg is?
अच्छा धोया हाँ
Maybe his internet is lagging. What is use here? This okay, that's what I'm explaining. But have you thought how will you create a Rube Goldberg? Like if you were to create this machine, how will you create this Rube Goldberg? Like if you were the creator of a Rube Goldberg, how are you going to test that all the parts are working? Anything can go wrong. Like a ball is coming from here and hitting a target. Now that can go wrong, and anything can go wrong, and it's very difficult to test the whole machine. How are you going to test it? Any ideas? This is like one iteration through the machine takes you 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes to run through the whole machine. Okay? But to set up the whole machine, it will again take you like 1.5 hours. Okay? So you cannot run integration test on the machine. You cannot test the complete machine in one go. Does that make sense? Are you able to understand that engineering problem that you are trying to solve? You have a machine which takes like 2 hours to set up. Okay? And you don't have a chance of testing it. So how are you going to test it? Why do we need this? That's what I'll connect it. Just wait for it, Vivek. Just wait for it for a few seconds. You will understand the unit test and integration test with this concept better than anyone else can teach you. So tell me, how will you solve this engineering problem? You have a big machine. Anything can go wrong anytime. How are you going to test that machine?
हाथ धो मनीष हाथ धो साबुन वहीं पे है
Hello. Yeah, how are you going to test it? What process will you follow to test a machine that takes 2 hours and there are so many moving parts? Anything can go wrong.
मनीष
First test each part. Exactly. So what you need to do is, you need to test this part. You need to take the input of this part, provide it by your hand. So if a ball comes rolling into a hole, you want to roll the ball yourself. And if the output is that this is going to trigger the next event, you just keep that trigger, not the next events. You remove the next events, you just keep the trigger and see if the trigger is getting updated. So what you do is you take a part, you look its input and you look its output. If for a given input it is giving output, what do you say? Consistently. So I will send 5 times the input and all 5 times I should get the consistent output. Or maybe I'll do it 20 times. I can do that very quickly. And since I have a team of 20 people, each one can test one of the parts. And he can perfect each of the parts. So suddenly what you have is all the parts are working properly in their unit. Once every part is tested, you combine the machine and you test the triggers. Okay, so when I'm testing part A, I test its input and output, its trigger and its response. Similarly, when I test the next part, I'm testing its trigger and its response, and so on and so forth. But still, once you have tested the whole ticket, there is no guarantee that the Rube Goldberg will work properly. So in the final, so if there is a 20-hour challenge, so first 10 or 12 hours you will spend on unit testing. You will take each part and test it. Then maybe you will combine 3 parts together and test them together. And finally, just before the competition, 2-3 hours before that competition, you will test the whole machine from starting to the end and see if it is working. You see how testing a mechanical system works at different level. Now, bringing it back to the analogy of our app has many moving parts and we can test them unit wise. We first tested uh, all the controllers. Okay, this was the unit that we tested, and finally now we are testing the whole app. All the input, all the gateways into our app are tested by just keeping the DB as a mock. So that is the difference between unit testing, unit testing, and integration testing. Do you understand this now? Hello? Vivek, do you understand the point that I was trying to make with the Rube Goldberg machine? Something. Yeah. Once you build a Rube Goldberg, yeah. Okay. You don't get it, then that's okay. Aradhya, did you get it? The difference between unit testing and integration testing. Once you build so if you ever get a chance to build a Rube Goldberg, yeah, try to do it. It's a very fun activity. Like you will understand physics better than anyone can teach you. You will understand mechanics better than anyone can teach you. It's time taking. It's a You'll understand a lot of things about engineering if you build a Rube Goldberg by hand. So I'm going to create the router test cases. In this, what you need is you need the app server. So const app is equal to require dot app dot js. Is there a thing like app dot js? What is the problem? I have a app.js, so why is this not coming? Dot slash slash app. Okay. In the app, I have to go and export the app. So I'll just have to come here and do exports equal to app. Save this. Go to the routers. App is there, and you have the DB. Const DB. Now, those of you who were not in one of the previous classes, this DB is different from the Dynamo DB that you have. This is a mock DB. I've created a mock DB using Mongoose memory server. This is a mocked version of the DB. It is not the real DB. You can connect to it, you can clean it, you can do all sorts of things with the DB, but it is not the actual DB. It's like a small space in your memory which is acting as the DB. Okay, so this is the required DB. Before all, we are going to run an async function which will do await on db.clear database. And after all, async is going to run this. Here await db.close database, and you're going to do app.close. Is there an app.close? App.js, app.listen. Yeah, we can close the app. Good. So now let's look at how the app will work. We'll have const API and point is our CRM API. Okay, CRM API. Let's keep it like this. There's a test payload. Const test a load will contain the values of a user that you want to insert. So I'll put him here. And let's look at sign in should pass. Describe, post, sign up. I think somebody asked me that should sign in and sign up we get request. They should be post request. I'm sorry if I've given you the wrong answer. I was not focusing on it. The sign in and sign up are actually post requests. Okay. I don't remember who asked that question, but this was somebody from this class itself. It should sign up. Async, and you'll have this. Once response is actually await request app. See what is happening? This request, which is super task request, is going to send a post request on the app. So I just come here and do post. I'll have API endpoint plus auth/sign up. On this URL, I want to do a post, and I'm going to send a payload. Test payload. Whatever test payload is there. What I expect in the response is that the status code to be equal to 201, and I expect response.body to be equal to is expected to contain an object containing. You can use this request thing without a problem. The Zest framework works seamlessly with SuperTest. So you can just do email is equal to test at relevel.com. You will have name. Okay, name being equal to test. You will have user ID equal to 2. User status being equal to approved, and user type being equal to customer. I save this and I run the test cases. What happened? Did I run? Okay, this is not this one I have to run. What is the problem? One test case has failed. Which test case has failed? Middleware. JWT auth. Sign up. Let me see. The sign up should pass. Post.api. Address is not a.
पापा ये वाला हम लोग
app.address is not a function.
माम का
me see. Request app. What is app? App is the required app. Let me print this. Console.log app. I save this and I run this one more time. Control C, yes. And test. I think the problem is occurring because app. Let me see the server. Yeah, DB is a function. So actually what is happening is this app.js, instead of exporting the app, you have to export the listen part of the app. So I will close it here and I'll just do module dot exports is equal to app dot listen. If I export this, I should be able to. Yes, control C this. Again. Routes. Hide this. Yeah. So I have to export the app.listen part instead of app itself. And yeah, that's how you can test a endpoint. So now you're testing the exact endpoint. Now you're not going to test all the use cases. It is like just like you are not going to test the whole Rube Goldberg 20 times, because that actually is not the right way to test. You are going to test the app at few endpoints and see if the whole integration thing is working properly. Unit tests are more pointed in that sense. The integration test can be just on the integration of the whole app. It need not be on the entire app. Okay. This is the sign in. There will be a sign in post also, which is very similar. Actually, I can just copy the sign up, and that is going to be the sign in itself. So I'll just copy the whole thing. Control C from here and paste it. Post sign up and sign in endpoint should sign in. And for sign in, I'm just coming here and sending it to sign in process. The test request payload should be 0 to 200. And the response should contain all these things, which is correct. And that's it. That's my sign in endpoint. I save it and I try to run the sign in endpoint. There's one error here. No, what is the error? Let me check why sign in is not working.
बड़वारी बहुत आहे कि चल तबे हो कामा जेल कोनो के कोई दो से नहीं मुर्ख झुप्पी देवी
access token. You're in sign in. You are returning containing object this is equal to so there's this problem that this should be user type. So if I go back to my auth controller, in my auth controller, when I return for sign in, I return here it should be user type instead of user types. I save it and I run the code again. After all, like DB is function. Yeah, it's not, it's a hook. There's a just give me 1 second. Let me see why is that running. Why is it crying? Email is correct. Name is correct. User ID is correct. User status is correct. Why is it expecting an object like that? Sign in should pass. Sign in. Okay, this is the controllers. So just go back to auth controller. Here I've written in sign in. I've written it as should pass. In this I have written it as types. So after everywhere it should be consistent. So this is where unit tests are helpful. So what happened? My once my integration test was passing, but my controller test was failing because I have written types here. So that's one thing I have saved. Now let's talk about this one. This before all and after all and DB. What happens is before running any of the test cases in this what is it called? In this suite, this is called as a suite of packages. Okay, just provide you with some support of how to some extra things that you can do before running a suite of tests. This file, all the test cases inside this file are called as suites. Okay, before all test cases I want to clear my DB. This is the first command. Second, after all the test cases have been run, I want to close my database and I want to close my app. That's what this means. Okay, these are methods that are run at specific points. These are called as events, I guess. These are called as events, which run on specific times during the testing process. Does that make sense, Nitish? You can also have a case where you want to run after each and before each. So before each test case, you can run up a specific process that you want to run. So that's how you can test the whole app from starting to end. There are other test cases also for tickets and there are test cases for users also. Maybe in the next class we'll discuss it, or maybe I'll show you the code for it. They are very similar to this case. Whatever you do with Postman, you can do with the coding itself, and that's the whole process of integration testing. Maybe I'll spend some time next class discussing the integration test for tickets and users, and that should be the end of our CRM app. There will be, in the next class, I will also discuss how to deploy this app online so that other people can use it on, not on localhost, but on a server. So you can use my app and I can use your app, things like that. Okay. Till the next class, that's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed the class and learned something new today. Bye everyone. Thank you. Bye. Happy weekend. Bye. Bye bye.